we need to do today is to sow the seeds for the next generation to participate in the agriculture sector. And in that context, we must create the environment for the new generation to always be interested in agriculture, because agriculture is where our food comes from. If we fail to do that, then we'll be facing much more serious situations, much more difficult conditions if we face a similar situation that we had gone through for the past 2 years during the lockdown. So this is about being dependent on the production that we can have internally rather than be over-dependent on what comes from outside. So this is a fundamental issue that needs to be addressed, not just by the government, but also by the people of this country. I think when we look at the food security issue, it's about ensuring we have the required supplies within our own dominion, especially in terms of fulfilling the needs of the population, not just in terms of the quantity, but also in terms of the quality of food that we supply to the nation. Food security actually goes beyond just supply, but also about quality and consistency of the produce that we have within our country. The JCorp Group Agrofood plan is first and foremost talking about food security. Food security is today a very important agenda by virtue of not just producing for the country's requirements, but also in terms of making sure that in any situation we are ready for any crisis that could afflict our industry. It ensures that we have the right production rates within the country. Secondly is about uplifting the livelihoods of the farmers, especially in terms of modernizing the agriculture sector. This provides multiple benefits, not just for participants, but also for the consumers as well. Currently, what we're having is something that focuses on the state itself, on how do we further uplift Johor's capabilities in terms of producing the right crops, the right quality, the right quantity, and at the same time attract people to come into the agriculture sector. In this regard, with the Agrofood plan in place, it sort of modernizes our approach to the sector rather than becoming a sector which is very much traditional, back-breaking. We want to modernize it in terms of how you do your work, how you can automate or further enhance the work rate and productivity of people, and at the same time that efficiency allows us to get better quality of produce. This addresses multiple issues that we face currently, not just in terms of production internally, but also in terms of bringing in external produce to our country.
Jadi bulan depan ni dah ready untuk harvest ni.
There are a lot of things that we have done thus far in terms of applying technology. It involves a lot of things. It's not just about mechanization or automation of work, but also involves digitalization of the work processes and management systems that we are using within the management. But we do not stop there. We are looking at further technologies to be adopted, whereby whatever technology that we bring in is about reducing the dependency on manpower, reducing the requirements of labor. And in this regard is also about developing a system where we could entice much more highly qualified people to come into the agriculture sector. So today we're looking at drone technology, we're looking at IoT, for that matter, in terms of managing farms and estates. We're looking at further mechanization of work that we do, and hopefully we can bring in a lot more in terms of how we do things, especially in terms of addressing the labor needs of the sector. So at the end of the day, it's about attracting the people to actually go back to the rural areas and developing lands and producing better crops, enhancing earnings of people in the rural areas. So therefore, in that context, once we address all these issues, we would be able to enhance and uplift the modern farmer. That would significantly address that issue of currently whereby we are overly dependent on foreign labor. The fact is, if we could incorporate more technology, more innovation into the work processes for the agriculture sector, that should translate to more local participation in the work that we have, and at the same time bring in more ideas as well. Today what we want to do is to develop the right model that we could place in Johor. From there on, that model should be the base for us to entice more people to come into the sector, and perhaps with one model that we develop say for example, we develop a model in Ulu Tiram, which is quite close to JB. You talk about access to urban areas is not an issue. Access to technology is not an issue. Then once the right participants come in and they actually can demonstrate that they have a better life, they have better earnings by coming into the agriculture sector, working with Kulim for that matter, and producing the right crops and also delivering the right produce later on, that will be our model to also replicate at other districts, entice other people as well to move back into agriculture. And I think systems that we develop will be the base for people to actually be attracted to. In this regard, what we want to ensure is that people who want to come into agriculture doesn't have a problem of participating in agriculture. We could do what we would call a plug and play concept, whereby any guy can come in and say that I'm interested in agriculture. What do I need? What we need is basically a desire to work in the segment, willing to work hard to develop it and deliver, but in terms of resources, in terms of funds, in terms of land, in terms of systems, it's already developed by Kulim. In the first place, we want to be based on a hub and spoke model. So therefore, for all the spokes that we create, there must be a central hub. So this hub ensures there's proper management and proper monitoring of the efficiencies or the capabilities of the spokes that supplies back to the hub. Secondly, is about utilization of technologies within the workplace, within the operations that we do, not just at the commercial entity, but also in terms of the participants, where we are able to monitor and see how they are doing, and we will be able to address any kind of issue that can arise during the phase of planting or cultivation that they are participating in. Thirdly is about producing high value product. When we talk about high value products, it's not just about picking the right crop that gives you higher prices, but also to ensure that there is less wastage. So this translates to better earnings, better productivity and efficiencies for the participants. And we need to also to capitalize on partnerships, to look at what are the contributions that can be garnered from agencies, government agencies especially, what can also be developed with other corporates for that matter. And at the end of the day, once we have all these things in place, in terms of the quantity, in terms of the quality and consistency of produce, we should be able to have the right brand that goes to market. So this allows us to have it in a more integrated fashion and allows us to go to market with a single identity. And that identity is the brand that we offer. When we look at Kulim, Kulim has always been a plantation company. However, when we talk about plantation company, the discipline of Kulim has always been about participating in the upstream side. We've never gone downstream. And in this regard, when we move into agribusiness, still about upstream as well. So the challenge today is to go downstream, to go into midstream, to further develop the segments that we can get better margins at. So in this context, it's about having different mentalities as well, being more market savvy in terms of understanding what the market wants, especially when you talk about agribusiness. For upstream, I think it's just purely about going integrated, whereby we will have a downstream segment. But for the agribusiness, it's about ensuring that whatever we produce is about delivering the right quality and quantity to the consumers. When we look at the participants, what we do today is not just at Kulim or JCorp level. What we're doing is for the state. By virtue of JCorp being a state agency, being a state entity, we view ourselves as carrying the mandate for the state to further uplift and modernize the sector for the state itself. So in this regard, it's about putting Johor at the forefront of the agriculture segment in terms of developing new technologies, of developing better farmers and enhancing the agriculture sector. So there are a lot of participants. From there on, what we see is if we are able to achieve this at state level, then we view ourselves as putting this at national level, that we can further scale up and expand to other places as well.